Hey guys, tonight we walk the dusty streets of a city you wouldn't survive not for a day, not for an hour, not even for the length of a scroll reading. It's not just the danger, though there's plenty of that. It's the decay, the kind you don't see on the walls, but feel in your bones, the kind that doesn't scream, it whispers until you stop noticing. We're in Sodom, just before everything burns. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments what's your local time and where you listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand near the gate as the sun lowers itself over the distant salt flats. This city isn't in chaos not yet. It's in routine. That's the unsettling part. Nothing seems wrong, at least not on the surface. People buy, sell, laugh, argue over olives. Bakers sweep flour from stone steps. Music drifts out of a tavern, off-key but lively. But underneath it all, something's off. You walk past a man kicking a beggar. No one stops him. You see children laughing at cruelty. A vendor selling idols shaped like flame. The city feels like a party right before the police raid it, not nervous, just numb. And there's Lot, Abraham's nephew. He looks tired. Not from work, from compromise. His robe is fine, his beard trimmed, but his eyes flick around like someone who knows he's overstayed in a place that's no longer safe. He doesn't quite belong here. Never did. But after so long in Sodom, even Lot walks with a little Sodom in his stride. You follow him home, stone house, solid door, a wife who barely glances up as he enters. She's beautiful. Proud posture, crisp veil, eyes like daggers that have learned to sheath themselves. Her name's never mentioned in the Bible, not even once. But tonight, we'll call her Isha just to make things personal, because everything's about to get personal. The servants begin to light oil lamps. Dinner's prepared. It's lamb again. Not because it's sacred, because it's easy. You can tell this house used to pray before meals, but now the silence before eating feels more habitual than holy. Lot sits, rubbing his temples. Isha watches him, lips tight. The air between them is polite, practiced, cold. You get the sense this isn't a love story anymore, it's a survival pact. Then come the footsteps. Two men, not dusty, not frantic, just glowing a little more than they should in this dim city. Lot rushes to the door, opens it, bows deep. You don't see strangers get welcomed like this around here. But Lot seems to know these aren't normal visitors. He urges them in. Isha stiffens. Guests mean danger in Sodom. She closes the curtains tighter than usual. And then the pounding starts. The city's men, too many to count, surround the house like wolves circling a lamb. They demand what's inside. Not food, not shelter. They want the visitors. Every word from the crowd is poison. Lot steps outside, tries to reason, bargains with horror. At one point, he offers his own daughters. You want to shout, "Are you serious?" Isha is already shaking her head in the shadows. And then light, blinding. The strangers open the door, stretch out their hands, and the crowd is struck blind, confused, screaming. They scatter into the night like ants from a kicked nest. The house is silent again. One of the visitors turns to Lot and speaks plainly. "Take your family, all who belong to you. Leave this place, now. Lot stares, processing. It's too fast, too much. He hesitates. So do his sons-in-law when he tells them. They laugh at him. Judgment from God in Sodom? Please, they say, go back to sleep. But Isha doesn't laugh. She watches Lot's face, watches his hands tremble. She's not ready to believe, but she's ready to Runif. She must. You look out over the city again. The streets quiet, the torches flickering. The calm before a storm not made of wind or rain but fire. You don't know when, but it's coming. And by the time the sun rises again, this city and everyone in it will be smoke on the horizon. The lamps are still burning, but nobody's eating. Lot paces the room, pulling at his beard, mumbling about judgment and fire and angels who glow like starlight in a storm. His daughters sit on the floor, silent. His wife Isha leans against the wall, arms folded, eyes darting from her husband to the windows. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't need to. Everything in her body already knows this is real. You step back, watching this house of tension teeter, between staying and leaving, between normal and never again. And still, they hesitate. There's something almost gravitational about Sodom, not just physically, spiritually, emotionally. People build lives in the wrong places, and suddenly the wrong place starts to feel like home. You glance at Isha. She isn't screaming or panicking. She's calculating. You can almost hear her inner list jewelry in the drawer, linens she wove herself, a spice rack she's particularly proud of. The rose garden out back. Even now, with the sky hanging thick and sulphurous above the rooftops, she's wondering if she really has to let it all burn. The angels don't wait for a decision. One grabs Lot by the arm, another takes the daughters, a third touches Isha's wrist. And just like that, they are moving out the door, down the alley, into the dark. There is no time to pack. No time to say goodbye. You stumble through narrow streets, past stone walls and crooked doors, and behind you, the wind starts to shift. Not natural wind, heavier, hotter, like the sky is breathing smoke. Run for your lives, the angel says. Do not look back. Do not stop. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. Lot, desperate, pleads for a compromise. Can we go to that little town over there? It's close. We're not strong enough to make the mountains. The angel agrees, but the command remains. Do not look back. You run. Sandals kicking dust, hearts pounding, not because you're fast, but because the ground behind you rumbles. Then comes the sound. It's not thunder, it's judgment, a roar that shatters your ribs from the inside out. The sky is no longer sky, it's a wound torn open, pouring fire. The heat hits you like a wall, but you don't stop. You remember the bread you baked with no yeast? You were in a rush then. This is like that, but multiplied by divine wrath and panic. Lot holds one daughter's hand. The other clutches her robe, eyes wide with tears. And Isha? She's running. She's sweating. She's remembering her earrings left in a clay jar, the shawl her mother wove, the bowl she traded for on her wedding day. She's thinking of the life she built, not evil, just hers. And then she turns. It's not a dramatic spin, just a glance, over the shoulder, a longing blink toward everything that once felt like home. The others don't see it, but you do. You feel the air snap. She stops, mid-stride, feet rooted, head still half turned. And just like that, Salt, not metaphor, not slow, instant, like the moisture is pulled from her bones, like her grief fossilizes her before she can scream. A glint of white where a woman once ran. You stop only for a second. She's not a person now. She's a warning, a statue of memory, of hesitation, of choosing yesterday over survival. You want to reach for her. You want to look longer. But the words echo again. Do not look back. So you run, and the city behind you, the entire city screams as it crumbles. Not just buildings, voices, thousands of them, rising and dissolving into ash and silence. The sky glows red behind the hills as you reach the outskirts of a small town. You collapse, breath gone, feet blistered, soul stunned. Lot stares blankly. His daughters weep, and Isha, she doesn't move. She never will again. A salt-etched silhouette against the world that burned. Dawn breaks without celebration. The sky isn't soft pink or gold today. It's gray and red and sick. The air tastes metallic smoke, salt, maybe sorrow. Somewhere behind you, Sodom is still burning. You don't turn around. You don't have to. You can feel the fire in your lungs. Lot sits on a rock just outside Zoar, staring at nothing. His daughters huddle near a broken wall, their heads on each other's shoulders, silent, not mourning, not praying, just stunned. And you? You keep scanning the horizon, half expecting Isha to catch up. But she won't. You saw it. You felt it. One glance. One half-second moment of longing. Turned to Salt. And now she stands forever frozen just over the rise behind you, somewhere near the edge of the path. A monument without a name. You wonder why she looked. That's the question echoing through every generation since. Why did she turn around? Was it disobedience? A reflex? Curiosity? Or was it deeper? Maybe she wasn't looking at fire. Maybe she was looking at her life, her home, her past, her identity. You think about all she left behind, not just things, but rituals, people, smells, laughs, the rhythm of her market mornings, the taste of ripe figs from the southern wall, the laughter of women she'd grown old with. And now, just like that, is gone. Some scholars argue she turned in defiance, that her heart had always belonged to Sodom. Others say it was grief of mother glancing back at sons-in-law who stayed behind. And still others whisper that maybe she didn't believe God was that serious. But Salt doesn't negotiate. It crystallizes what was once fluid, locks it in place. And you realize the tragedy isn't just that she disobeyed. It's that she stopped moving. Because escape isn't just about fleeing danger. It's about choosing not to cling to it while you run. You try to picture her face in that final moment. Was it fear, regret, or something quieter and ache, too deep for words? You won't know. Because she didn't cry out. She didn't collapse. She just stopped. And Salt is silent. You sit with Lot later that morning. He hasn't blinked much. His tunic is torn, his sandals half burned, his hands once trembling air now still. He speaks softly. She didn't even scream. You nod. Then he says something unexpected. She was always the brave one. You turn, surprised. She held our family together, taught the girls to bake, kept Sabbath even when no one else in the city did. She could haggle at the market without blinking. She wasn't soft. You let the words sit. They don't change what happened, but they remind you. She was more than a statue, more than a cautionary tale. She was a woman, a wife, a mother, and now a symbol. That's the strange twist, isn't it? In a story where fire falls and cities die, the moment we remember most isn't the explosion, it's the glance. The one little act that tells 1,000-year story. Because sometimes it's not sin that stops us. It's sentiment. You help the daughters gather food flatbread from a wrapped cloth, dates, something bitter that might have once been mint. They eat mechanically, eyes hollow, and you notice something in their faces. They look like her. You wonder if they'll speak of her years from now, or if the story will shrink into a single phrase. She looked back. You watch the fire still burning on the horizon, and your chest tightens. She's out there, still standing, still salt. You turn away, and you walk forward. The road stretches out like a scar across the earth, winding through dusty hills and half-forgotten trails. You walk it now slowly, the soles of your feet raw, the rhythm of your steps steady not from strength, but because there's nowhere else to go. Behind you, salt, smoke, and memory. Ahead, silence. Lot leads, but it doesn't feel like leadership. It feels like motion for motion's sake. The daughters follow close, their steps in sync, their eyes watching the ground. And you walk just behind, half guard, half pilgrim, wondering how long it takes for grief to feel less like suffocation. You camp at the base of a limestone ridge that night. A few goats bleat in the distance, and the stars come out one by one, hesitant. No fire is lit, no one speaks. The world feels paused. And still, that image lingers, the pillar of salt. You picture it again, sharp edges, windswept curves, not smooth like marble, not polished, crystallized pain, the kind that forms when someone freezes mid-movement, caught between what was and what might have been. You think about salt differently now. It's not just seasoning, it's preservation, it's judgment, it's permanence, and strangely, it's sacred. Salt was once a symbol of covenant in ancient Israel, a sign of unbreakable promises. Sacrifices were seasoned with it. Even newborns were sometimes rubbed with it, cleansing, protecting. But here, salt doesn't preserve, it reminds. And you wonder, what if that was the point? What if her becoming salt wasn't just punishment, but a kind of monument, not to glorify her fall, but to freeze frame a single human moment, the peril of looking back when grace is pulling you forward. You lie awake under the stars, and your thoughts wander further than your body has. You imagine her in her last normal morning, making bread, folding linens, listening to Lot grumble about city politics while she pretended not to hear. You wonder if she ever felt Itan ache she couldn't name, the slow erosion of her joy as the city's edges sharpened and its soul thinned. Maybe she stayed for the same reason many of us do, because leaving costs more than coping, until it doesn't, until it all collapses. And then leaving is survival. Still, even when the sky is burning, some hearts can't help but look over their shoulder. And Salt remembers that In the morning, Lot says they're going to the mountains. Zoar felt too close to fire, too close to memory. The daughters don't argue. They pack quickly. The food is running low, but no one complains. Hunger is simpler than grief. The climb is steep, the air thinner with every step. Rocks crumble underfoot, and thorn bushes tear at the edges of your robe. But you keep going. You don't talk about her. No one does. It's like saying her name might summon something: pain, judgment, or worse, regret. But she's with you anyway. In the pauses between steps. In the way the girls clutch each other when the wind howls too loud. In the way Lot touches the ring on his finger without realizing it. The ghost of her is salt and silence. And she lingers. You reach a cave by sundown. The sky is pink now, soft for the first time in days. The daughters gather stones to make a small barrier. Lot curls into the wall, eyes closed, lips moving in a prayer that sounds more like apology. You sit at the cave's mouth, watching night roll in. Somewhere out there, beyond the ridges, beyond the ash, a white pillar still stands. Wind-whipped, unmoving, telling the truth without words. You close your eyes, and for a moment, imagine what she might say if she could speak through salt. Don't follow me. I only pause for a moment. The cave is dark and still, but the kind of stillness that doesn't bring peace. It's the stillness of aftermath where everyone's breathing, but no one's really living yet. Where survival feels like standing in the ruins of a dream that used to be your life. You wake just before dawn. Lot's already awake, staring into the dim space between rock and sky. He hasn't slept much since the city fell. Maybe he's afraid of dreaming about her. Maybe he's afraid of not dreaming about her at all. The daughters lie curled against the cave walls, motionless. In the silence, you hear one of them whisper, "She didn't mean to do it." The other doesn't reply. You step outside into the chilly morning air. The horizon is just beginning to glow, no fire this time. Just light, just enough to remind you that the world keeps spinning even when you're not sure how. You stare toward the distant south, where the plains once shimmered with wealth, where Sodom and Gomorrah once held parties and policies and pomegranates, where pillars stood for temple sand. Now, only one pillar remains. A woman, or the outline of one, or the echo of one. You wonder what people will say about her generations from now. Will they reduce her to a sentence? She looked back. Will they mock her, preach about her, warn children not to be like her? Or will anyone pause long enough to wonder what it costs to leave everything you've ever known behind and not be allowed one final glance? You return to the cave. The air inside smells of stone, ash, and sleep. Lot is still praying. Not loudly, not with fancy words. Just a whisper. Why her? There's no thunderous reply, no angelic appearance. Just the wind pressing softly against the cave mouth, as if even God mourns and whispers sometimes. The daughters stir. They begin unpacking what little they have left. You help gather water from a spring nearby. The tasks feel mechanical, but they're a kind of faith. Doing normal things after abnormal loss is its own kind of worship. You sit with the daughters by the fire. They say nothing about their mother. But when one of them drops a piece of flatbread into the embers by accident, she gasps and then freezes, staring at the crumbling edges, how quickly it chars, turns gray, dissolves into ash. And you know what she's thinking. You're all thinking it. Later that afternoon, a shepherd passes by your camp. He's from further north. When you ask him about the plains, he makes the sign of protection with his hand. Gone, he says, burned straight to the sky. And then he lowers his voice. They say there's a woman made of salt, standing near the road, still looking south. You glance at Lot. He's heard the rumor already. He doesn't deny it. He just exhales. The shepherd shrugs, offers a fig, and leaves. You hold the fig in your palm, warm, sweet, heavy with sedan. For a moment it feels scandalous to eat something so alive, but you do, slowly, because she can't. You walk again that evening, climbing a nearby ridge to get a clearer view of the valley. It's barren, blackened, a wound in the earth that's still smoking around the edges. And you wonder if, maybe just maybe, this is what mercy looks like sometimes. Not escape without pain, but survival through it. The daughters join you silently. One of them slips her hand into yours. You don't speak, because there's nothing new to say, except maybe this. Some glances cost too much, and some statues teach more than sermons ever could. The ridge is cold tonight. Wind traces across your skin like fingers that remember too much. Below you, the ruined plain still smolders in patches, like the earth hasn't quite decided whether to be finished with its grief. And somewhere beyond sight, past the haze and the heat, stands the shape you can't forget. Her, salt, still, facing the wrong direction forever. You crouch on the edge of a bluff, arms wrapped around your knees, and listen to the wind. There's something oddly reverent about it, like even the elements hush when passing near judgment that intimate. Lot doesn't join you this time. He's staying close to the cave. You suspect his world feels too fragile to leave the shadows. He still holds on to things she's daughters, their future, the threadbare outline of a life he's trying to patch together. But you know something he maybe doesn't. This story is no longer about him. It's about what we do with what's left. The daughters speak more now, not about her but around her. One hums while she works. The other picks wild herbs and sets them in bundles. Life persists, clinging to the cracks. But grief has changed its shape. It no longer cries it curls into the corners of memory where names live without being spoken aloud. You walk a little further down the trail that evening and find something strange. A rock shaped almost like a bowl, filled with, you guessed it, salt. You touch it, just for a moment. It stings, and you think, maybe that's what memory is. A quiet, sacred sting that refuses to leave us numb. You sit near it, and slowly, pieces of scripture come back. Ancient lines about salt. You are the salt of the earth. Every sacrifice must be seasoned with salt. In the Bible, salt means more than judgment. It means covenant, preservation, purity, and strangely worth. So, what if her transformation wasn't just punishment, but symbolic placement? Scholars still debate whether Lot's wife truly turned into a literal pillar, or whether it was metaphor. Some say it was volcanic ash, a natural reaction from sulfur and heat. Others believe the area near the Dead Sea holds formations of salt that resemble human figures. Tourists still photograph them, wondering which might be her. But those details, they don't really matter. Because this story wasn't meant to be pinned on a map. It was meant to be written into the human soul. You head back to camp and help gather wood for a tiny fire. No one speaks of the pillar, but in the flames, in the way the daughters avoid looking south, you feel her presence. She's not gone. She's simply unspoken. That's how grief often lingers, not in tears, but in sentences that trail off. Later that night, you watch Lot trace something on the cave wall with his finger. Maybe it's a prayer. Maybe it's just a way to feel in control. You glance at the daughters, they're whispering about food, maybe plans for finding a better shelter. But you notice how often they glance toward where she be. Not directly, just unconsciously. Like even their instincts haven't accepted her absence yet. And that's the truth, isn't it? When someone vanishes suddenly, your body still waits for them to walk into the room. You lie down near the edge of the cave, wrapped in a cloak that smells of ash and herbs. And just before sleep finds you, you whisper something into the dark. I won't forget you. Not as a warning, not as a cautionary tale, but as a woman who made one fragile, fatal choice. And wooed spite it remains in the story forever. Salt and silence. And maybe grace too. By morning, the wind shifts. It's softer now, carrying the scent of dry brush and wild thyme. No more ash, no more sulfur. Just the whisper of a world starting over, even if the hearts within it haven't caught up. You open your eyes slowly. The daughters are already gathering wood. Lot is washing his face in the cool stream that cuts between rocks outside the cave. It's the first time in days he's touched water with purpose, not just to survive, but to begin again. You rise and step out into the light. It's harsh at first, blinding, the kind of light that reminds you you're still here, whether you want to be or not. You squint toward the horizon. The Dead Sea shimmers there like glass, too quiet, too still. And somewhere near its edge, though you can't see it from here, stands the shape. Salt, woman, memory. No one speaks of her today, but you all carry her in how you move. Lot walks with a limp, now not physical but spiritual. The kind of limp you get from holding too much regret too close to your ribs. He doesn't look back, not anymore. He just speaks slower, breathes heavier, waits longer before deciding. The daughters say even less. They've tucked her absence into their silence, as if words might break what little is still intact. But when one of them finds a broken earring in the folds of a pack silver, small, delicate, they don't cry. They pass it between them and then gently bury it under a flat stone. A private ritual for a name no one speaks. You wander past a field of dry grass and something strange catches your eye. A patch of wildflowers, pale, small, soft as breath, growing near the edge of a salt-streaked rock. You kneel beside them, amazed. Life and salt coexisting. And suddenly, the metaphor blooms all over again. Maybe this story was never just about obedience or punishment. Maybe it's about the war between holding on and letting go. Maybe she wasn't evil. Maybe she was just human like you. Maybe her glance back wasn't rebellion. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was one final attempt to see the home that shaped her before becoming someone entirely new. Because that's the truth no one says aloud. Change isn't always clean. Sometimes salvation drags you from places you love. Sometimes you run with your feet and still ache in your chest. Sometimes looking back isn't defiance, it's grief. But even grief can cost you everything if you pause in the fire too long. You turn your gaze forward now, not because it's easy, but because it's the only direction mercy moves. You think of others who come after this, pilgrims, prophets, travelers who pass by that salt-crusted silhouette. Some will mock, some will ponder, a few will whisper prayers, all will remember. You walk back to the cave one last time. Lot is packing. The daughters are tying their cloaks. And the day is rising. As you step out into the light again, the story walks with you, not heavy like shame, but solid like salt. A reminder, a witness, a truth etched in the earth so no one forgets what it cost to cling to what should have been left behind. You breathe deep. You don't look back. Not because you're strong, but because you finally learned forward is enough. So now, just rest. You've walked the long path out of Sodom. You felt the fire at your back, the ache in your chest, the sting of choices made in the quiet corners of the soul. You've watched a woman become a statue, a life turned into salt, a name left unsaid yet never forgotten. But now the fire is out, the sky is clear, and you soft breathing still becoming air safe. Let the rhythm of the story fade like footsteps behind you. Let the weight you've carried slip gently from your shoulders. Let the silence settle, not as emptiness, but as space to heal, space to breathe, space to simply be. Not everything must be understood tonight. Not every tear needs a reason. Not every backward glance is condemnation. Sometimes it's just part of the journey. But now you're past the threshold, beyond the burning, still walking, and with each quiet step forward, you reclaim a little more of yourself. So close your eyes. Let the light dim behind your lids. Let the breath come slower. Let the memory of the salt become a whisper, not a weight. You are not trapped. You are not frozen. You are still moving. And you are not alone.